There was a vigil. There was a vigil last night for Jerry and Blake. We're going to talk about some of the recent murders. You heard from Police Chief Warren Evans that in the case of Ayanna Jones, he cannot talk about that case. But we will be here on Your Voice talking about some of the other recent murders that have taken place in the city of Detroit. 313-298-1200 is the number. Right. Well, we know that Chauncey L. Owens, 34, will be arraigned today in the 36th District Court in connection with the shooting death of 17-year-old Jerry and Blake at Mack and Benito on the east side. There was a candlelight vigil for him held last night. Prosecutors are saying that he didn't like the way the youth looked at him. He's also being charged with a felon in possession of a firearm and being a habitual offender. The witnesses say that Owens had a verbal confrontation with Jerry and then left for several minutes before returning with a gun and fatally shooting him. According to the Wayne County prosecutor, she's quoted in the Detroit Free Press as saying the death of Jerry and Blake is as senseless as it can get. The allegations are that the defendant killed a 17-year-old student because he looked at the defendant the wrong way. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the family of Mr. Blake. Police Chief Warren Evans, what can you tell us about Chauncey Owens or the Jerry and Blake case? Can you share any?
Well, I think the prosecutor obviously hit the nail right on the head. There's probably nothing more senseless than that shooting and killing. He is going to be arraigned today. Part of the reality is, you understand, he's also being charged as a habitual, and that in people's minds got to understand this man's 34 years old, still a relatively young man. Habitual means you have prior felony convictions prior to this one, and we just see that more and more in terms of people with prior criminal histories being involved in these shootings and other related issues, which goes to one of the issues we talked about a couple of weeks ago, not here, but just with respect to the kind of revolving door issue of people with very low bonds back out in the street and there to be caught again and there to victimize other people.
Yesterday, Geraldine Jackson was laid to rest. She is the 69-year-old grandmother who was hit by a stray bullet. There were reports about her homegoing service. Police Chief Warren Evans, here you had a case where a 65-year-old guy doing some repair work in a home, he is robbed by a 19-year-old who takes his car as well as his belongings and runs away. You have the 65-year-old man out of frustration or anger or whatever chasing him, shooting, and Geraldine Jackson gets shot. I just don't know where to even start. It just seems like as if one incident triggered just a trail of issues and problems. How would you categorize what happened?
Just another. The key to it is the level of violence, the level of frustration that people feel with respect to violence. And so now you have a series of things. I mean, if the young man, for example, had a play gun or a gun that wasn't real, there's absolutely no way for the gentleman who's robbed to know that.
Yeah, you would know.
So that, to me, is not even in play. But then you have a woman in her house preparing food for someone. I mean, the idea that she could be by whoever's gun. It gets back to the level of violence with respect to the person charged, because that is a violent act to carjack and rob somebody, and the frustration, I think, and to a large extent, of people trying to defend themselves, people worried about the level of that. I mean, you're not a spring chicken when you're 65.
Right, without that.
And so it's just another example of a level of violence in a city that we're trying to deal with, that we're trying to eradicate. And again, I can't say it enough times to give some level of balance while I'm not using it as a crutch or as an excuse. The numbers of shootings in this city this year is down 100 from last year. I mean, each one of those, so the level of it, you mentioned early in the show that sometimes it sounds like there's a shooting every day in the city of Detroit.
Right.
Angelo, some days there are 6.
Okay.
But the reductions are there in the number. Any one is too many. Any loss of human life is tragic, and it's too much, and that's what I've railed on. But you know, when you take the covers off of things and talk about them in reality and say, you know, people in the community, we have to pull together. The police have to step up what they're doing. We've got to move out there. It then takes the cover off of numbers that were there already.
Right.
And in fact, the numbers have improved, but people are now, hopefully, and I'm glad, are saying enough is enough. And we have to come together as a community to solve this problem. That's the only way we're going to get from point A to point B.
All right. On Facebook, Gary Westbrook says, can we, the citizens / business people of the city, donate money to a fund that will help supplement DPD, the Detroit Fire Department, EMS? He says, you are doing a great job, Chief Evans. I guess the mayor puts his salary into your budget, right? So can you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a Detroit Police Foundation that is set up already in place to assist the police department with issues. Whether it's technology or you know, whatever
Right.
might be there. So yes, and absolutely, we would love to have that happen. It is structured, so there'll be a decision committee decides what the money's spent for. So there are no issues of, you know, using it frivolously and that sort of stuff. And the more businesses and people help us through this tight patch in terms of the city's finances, obviously the commitment of the police department is to provide quality service. And I know, you know, it's a tough time out there, but, you know, Bernice, the last caller, prayed for me. Well, I'm praying for the men and women of the Detroit Police Department to go out there 24/7 to try to make the city safer. And anything we can do to help them is what we need to do.